So I was watching a video, or listening to a video, I'm driving, about marketing, and a gentleman was talking about how he made sure to learn from all of his bosses over time, and that every position that he held had value that maybe he didn't realize at the time. And it kind of got me reflecting back now that I've been not having a boss for 3 months or so, to kind of look back and think of what those bosses that I've had over the 25 years that I was employed by somebody else that wasn't me, and the more I thought of it, the more I was like, yeah, there really was a lot that I picked up along the way that I should really appreciate some of them for, most of them, and some of it was learning things not to do. So maybe this might help you find lessons in places that you weren't looking. I'm going to try to roughly go in chronological order. I don't know if this will resonate with anybody or not, but I'm just going to kind of personal vlog this for my future self, and then I might publish it. We'll see. So my first boss, his name was Ron. I worked at a bowling alley / arcade / snack bar on a university campus that was on the ground level of the main bookstore. That was my first job that I had for any length of time. I had worked at Wendy's for one day and decided I never wanted to do fast food. So that was a very quick lesson that I got in and out of there. But my boss there, his name was Ron. He taught me that it's okay to take a chance on something that's an unknown, because at that point I was the unknown. It's not like it was a high stakes position that I was applying for, and it was part-time because I was a full-time student. But I had no relevant work experience. I was just a student that was looking to get a job to do, something between class times and on weekends and stuff like that to make money. And he was willing to take a chance on that for me, and I'm appreciative of that. I think over the years that I was in supervisory roles where I had the ability to hire people and make those decisions, there was a lot of people that maybe had an unsure past or resume, but there's just something with those people that resonated with me that I ended up hiring. Most of the time it worked well. Doesn't always, because nobody's perfect, myself included, and some of those people weren't either, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. So my next boss was at Walmart. His name was Ken, and Walmart, not the most glamorous place to work at. I thought I was pretty cool because I was in the electronics department. How cool is that, right? And what I can take away from that position was that you can really make some deep connections with your coworkers and build a camaraderie. It's not like Walmart offers a ton else, or didn't when I worked there in the position that I was in. But as a team of same aged people for the most part, it was really nice to kind of build some deep relationships with coworkers, because I hadn't really done that before. And we used to go out after, this was back when Walmarts weren't open 24 hours. We would go out and drink or do karaoke nights or go to someone's house and play poker, stuff like that. And I really appreciated that coworkers could be more than just somebody you see at work. And then I also got the first I'm not mad, I'm disappointed disciplinary action from an assistant manager who was a gentleman that I highly respected. And when I can't even remember what it was. I think it was, he asked me to stock a shelf and I didn't do it. I went and did something else. I don't remember. But it was on me, and he I got written up for it. And the way he put it out there was not a shame on you, what the hell's wrong with you, you're terrible or whatever. He was like, come on, man, you know better. So that's kind of an attitude I've carried with me, is to treat people that made a mistake as though they made a mistake, but they're capable of not making that mistake. That most people know when they've done something wrong, and if you treat them like they're intelligent and they, in a manner that they can accept, they'll usually acknowledge that and be ready to move forward. So that's what I took from that. I worked briefly at Circuit City part-time while I was also working at a restaurant full-time. So that was a very chaotic several years of my life, juggling multiple jobs. What I learned at Circuit City was that electronics is not glamorous, even though I loved and still love, video games and all kinds of other games and tech and gadgets and stuff. Being surrounded by them in a store all day doesn't really bring me joy. And I also learned that the guys that could sell stuff for commission were the ones that make the real money. So that taught me that, looking for hourly rates as far as your income only gets you so far when there's no incentive for more performance for your work, like commissions can do. Which alongside working at Circuit City, I was working at a restaurant, and I learned that, when you're working for tips, you have to do a better job because you need to do a good enough job that people were willing to give you money. So I learned that there's more value, or there can be more value in your compensation if you earn it, given the right role. So while being a restaurant server is not a sales position, quote unquote, it absolutely is selling. It's just you're selling yourself, and you're selling how good of an experience you're delivering to them, even though you didn't make the food. You didn't sell the brand to them. You just gave them an experience that was hopefully good enough and nothing went wrong, and they were willing to give you, 15% was the norm at that time. So that's what I took from my years of working at restaurants. I worked at several. I also found out that being a restaurant manager, or just a manager in general, for the sake of it, was not something I wanted to chase after. Seeing what restaurant managers have to deal with relative to the amount of money that they were paid at the time was not on my agenda. That wasn't what I wanted to do. So my first job that I consider kind of a quote-unquote like real job, where I started building towards a career, was a small IT company. It was a locally owned, with five or six employees there, and the owner, his name was Jacob, and my boss's name, or my supervisor's name, was Caleb. Kind of taught me a lot about IT and help desk, and the main takeaway that I got from my time there was twofold. One was that was the first place I'd ever asked for a raise and was granted one. I'd kind of done my homework on how much they were billing my time hourly for to clients, and kind of leveraged that on, hey, this is how much value I've brought in versus my pay, and I was able to negotiate a raise that at the time was very nice. So it taught me that it's okay to ask for more, and it also taught me that there's a time and a place for trying to fix versus replace something. You can spend hours diagnosing a problem and trying to fix something that's broken, or you can spend way less time and potentially way less money just buying a replacement of that. So that was something I struggled with as a person that had built computers for most of my teenage and adult life. If something was wrong with the computer, I'd want to figure it out and fix it. And the owner, Jacob, I would tell him, hey, this is what it's doing. He's like, just reinstall it. Reinstall Windows. Just don't worry about fixing it. If they've got a virus, just reinstall it. And I was like, no, I can fix it. I got it. Or if there was, some kind of blue screen error, he'd be like, just get them a new motherboard. They don't want to wait. Just order, get a replacement. And I don't know, that was just kind of a paradigm shift in my head that time is more important than money. money in a lot of circumstances, and if you can bypass something taking longer by spending more money, or just, replacing something rather than trying to resolve it, that is a better solution for a lot of people. That's something that I've found myself having to weigh a lot of things in this business that I use today. That's a very important factor, is do I try to fix this printer, or do I just make this spare parts printer now and I buy a new one? So that was an important lesson. I learned from my next position, which was also IT, for a county government building, where I would basically help manage like data backups, which were on tape, with cassette tapes that had to be rotated out. I learned that your job is never concrete. I had a very bad back issue flare-up that had me lose about 2 weeks of work, and I had only been there about 4 months when that happened. And when I came back, they basically said, hey, since you're within 6 months of us hiring you, we can terminate you at any time for any reason, so we're going to do that. And obviously I was upset. I didn't feel like I had done anything wrong. I had a bad back that gave me a lot of problems. I couldn't work. I couldn't crawl under desks and stuff. So that taught me that no job is safe, which, that's the downside of at-will employment, I guess, is that you're free to quit whenever you want, but they're also free to quit you whenever they want. In hindsight, maybe that could have been like an ADA violation. I don't know. I don't think my back was a registered disability at the time, but moving on. My job after that, and this was right after our son was born, I got a sales position that was 100% commission, working for a Verizon retailer. And that really taught me that if your income is 100% reliant on you, that's a big motivation, and it's a big reward if you do it right. The commissions there were very large, but that was all you had. If you didn't sell anything in a day, you wouldn't make any money, and there was very, very little residual income that would come out of that. It was all about selling. So that taught me that you can bet on yourself, and it can pay off. It's not a guarantee, but it can, which obviously has a huge impact on me running a business for myself now. Looking back, that was kind of a big step that I took when I took that position, especially after having a newborn son. It's like, this is not guaranteed income, but it ended up being one of the best paying positions that I had for quite a while. The next position I had was also brief, and I went into car sales because I thought that, well, if I can make this much money being, in charge of my own destiny selling phones, I'm good at selling. Maybe I should be selling cars. There's a lot more money there. And there is, but I wasn't okay with what it would take to make that kind of money selling vehicles. Getting a peek behind the curtains of how all that works basically reaffirmed everything I thought that it was, despite the interview sounding to the contrary. I have nothing against the management or the people that I worked with there, and they taught me some great sales techniques, but marking something up artificially because someone literally doesn't know the price because you don't have it out there anywhere did not feel like a good way to carry it myself. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to tell somebody a price is $4,000 higher than what I would tell the next person, maybe. So that's what I took away from that, is that, even if a job may have a higher potential or make more money, you've still got to kind of be true to yourself and what you think is right and wrong. Again, that's not to say that car salesmen or any other sales positions are a requisite to be, a sleazebag or whatever. But the environment that I was in and my circumstances, it felt like that was the method that was encouraged, and I didn't want to do that. So I went back into phones, but I went to AT&T, and at that point I was working for AT&T corporate. So it was a sales position that was also union. It had good commissions and base pay, and it was a really great job. And that job carried me to where we currently live now, and we have for over 10 years, which is St. Louis. That's where Zealot Hobbies is based out of. And what I learned at AT&T, which this is weird to say, but that, feedback from your supervisors is a good thing, or it can be a good thing. At the car dealership, I never wanted to hear from the managers because it meant I dropped the ball on something. It meant that, oh, you lost that sale because you didn't say it this way, or you didn't offer them this. But at AT&T, they had it structured to where you would have regular conversations with your supervisors as just kind of touch bases and check-ins and things like that. And I even had this talk with the store manager there at one point, because she would always ask why I was so nervous whenever she would call me into the office. And I told her, I was like, well, I'm used to these being bad conversations. And she said, well, it's possible that they might be sometimes, but that's not the goal. The goal is to have them regularly, good or bad, and they were almost always good. So that taught me that the feedback loop should be continuous, and it should be good or bad. Let's talk about it, because then it's not like a Pavlovian response where, oh, my boss wants to talk to me, I'm in deep shit. So that's what I took away from AT&T. It was a great job. I ended up having a very bad back injury that caused me to miss. That was the first time I had ever actually had disability payment, and I missed a very long period of time there. And by the time I was needing to come back to work, I wasn't sure that I could stand up and work full time because of the back issues. And the AT&T positions were ones where you would basically stand at a table as a sales representative and work with people. So I let them know that I didn't think I would physically be able to perform that job, and it gave me the opportunity to look around in a new city, because we had moved while I was with them. And I took a job as an assistant manager. So that was my first official leadership role with an eyeglasses company. And as an assistant manager, I found out that if you work hard enough, you can be promoted. I hadn't really experienced that with any prior position, but with that company, I was an assistant manager for about 5 months, and then at the request of a store manager across town, they pulled me over to be the assistant manager at their location. And unbeknownst to me at the time, it was because they wanted me to take that location over as manager, because she was going to be moving to a busier location. So that was an incredible feeling that somebody sought me out and wanted me to kind of learn their store so I could be their successor in that location. And that was my first store manager role, or my first full supervisory role. And the team that I built there, it was small. It wasn't a big office. We had four people and a doctor, an optometrist, and we had such an incredible time there. We performed very well given our size and our volume, and we had a blast. The environment was amazing. We went to Starbucks together all the time. The Starbucks people would come over and hang out with us all the time. We did fun stuff that nobody else was doing in the stores in our company, and that let me know also that I could be my own style of boss as long as I was with the right company, and they would let me. And that was a hard one to leave because I was in a good spot. It felt like it was a good spot, but my assistant manager and my doctor, in the months leading up to my departure there, had both left for a different eye care company, and both told me how amazing it was and that I should really apply. So I did, and I applied for a role, in an office manager role in a location with that company that was about the same amount of volume as the location that I had. So it was going to be a lateral move. But after the interview, they talked to me about, hey, how do you feel about taking over a company of this size, or a store of this size? Holy shit. Traffic got nuts all of a sudden. Probably edit that out. So it went from being a lateral position shift, where it would be a similar size location with the same amount of people, to this is the biggest of our 70 locations in St. Louis, and we want you to try to run that. Here's the problems that it's having. Their store manager stepping down, or office manager. They didn't like to call them stores, which makes sense. It is at a doctor's office. And the first thing that taught me was that there was somebody that wanted to, again, put a lot of faith in somebody that they didn't really know. And when you get that trust given to you by someone, it really makes you want to earn it. You know, if somebody is willing to believe in you and put you in a high stakes spot like that, and especially looking back, I know how poorly that could have gone if her decision wasn't a good one. The doctors at that location are very busy. They were very influential in the company because they're good at what they do, and they did things outside of just seeing patients. Incredible staff there. Personnel, there was a lot going on, so I had a cleanup job to do, so to speak. And I learned how to do that. I learned how to make sure I was documenting everything that I needed to, and having the conversations that I needed to. Learned how to, unfortunately, terminate people. That was the first role where I had to actually do that. And, you know, got intimately involved with the HR process and what you need to do to go through that. But my district manager, because I was a store manager at that point, she was very supportive, and I can't say enough good things about her and my time with her. Within less than a year of taking that location, she was promoted to regional position, and I moved into her spot as a district manager. And the amount of faith that was placed in me by that, I'm so thankful for that. You know, I think that was really the pivot point in my life, that I felt like everything I had been working for, personally and professionally, was finally being acknowledged by someone, and it was showing results. You know, I was taking the opportunities that were given to me and running with them as best as I could, and it was working, and she saw that and gave me the opportunity to do that. And being a district manager is hard. I would both not recommend it to anyone and recommend it to everyone at the same time. It is not a job that I think I could have sustained for a much longer of a period of time than I did. But the amount that you can learn by being in close proximity to that much chaos on both sides of the fence, the lessons there are just there's so much. You're learning everything that can be happening in the field all at once, from dozens of locations, and, you know, nearly 100 people, I think, at one point, under my district, managing all of that, juggling positional shifts and promotions, and terminations, and staffing. Oh my God, the staffing, and, you know, trying to convince people to go help at other locations, and building a team across locations that was willing to help one another and actually enjoyed doing it, and you know, having to build build equity in those favors that I could ask when I really needed somebody to go help somewhere else. Learning the field and all of that was tremendous. And then on the other side of the coin, learning everything that comes down from corporate and figuring out, oh man, there's a lot of this that I might disagree with, but it doesn't matter what I think. This is my job. They're paying me to do X, Y, Z. And there was so much flexibility in how I might accomplish that. But at the end of the day, if there's something that, the company is wanting, or that my boss needs done, even if my personal opinion is different, you still have to do it, and do it with a smile on your face, because that's the role that you're in. That led to some tough conversations on both sides, with both my boss and being the boss of others. Explaining to them, hey, I understand, but we have to do this. Especially when COVID happened and everything got turned upside down. There was a lot of disagreements all over the place on how things should or shouldn't be happening, and it was utter chaos. But my regional, she really, I don't think I'll ever understand how much she changed my life's trajectory with putting that in my hands and letting me learn from it. Within the same company, I ended up leaving that position to work on our acquisitions team. We're at a point where the company was growing by acquiring other eye care practices, and they were planning on ramping that up. So they were forming a team to develop a process for integrating these acquisitions into our larger company. And one of the directors for that was a former district manager, so he was a colleague of mine, and he knew how good I was with tech and analytics and putting numbers together. And so he sought me out, and I had the blessing of my regional that this was a good call. Positionally, it was lateral, but it was getting out of the field and into more big picture corporate setting, and getting the opportunity to have a bigger impact for the company, and not just a cluster of stores in the area. It was a good move. It was very different. My biggest takeaway from that position was that when you get to roles like that, your salary is not just buying your time anymore. This was really, it's still tough sometimes to wrap my head around it or explain it to others, but you're not necessarily being paid for how many hours that you're sitting somewhere. You're being paid for what those hours are giving to the company. And this is very apparent with this role in particular, because this was post-COVID and a lot of people were working from home, or mostly working from home. And we were also in a team that didn't always have a lot going on, but sometimes we had a whole lot going on. So there would be weeks sometimes where I may only have 15 to 20 hours of actual stuff to do, but there might be a week where I have 60 to 70 hours of stuff to do. And I talked with my colleague / boss about that, and he basically was like, yeah, so it's really, we are working on deliverables and not on hour, like how many hours are you putting in? You're expected to deliver these things, to finish these things on or ahead of schedule, and to make sure these things are happening as they should, not to spend 40 hours tending to them. So the mindset shift of, being paid for how many hours of effort I put in to the output that comes from whatever amount of hours, was eye-opening, and that was something that I took with me and still use today, running my own company, is that it doesn't matter how many hours something takes. It's about what is the end result. If it takes me 3 hours to print something or 30 hours to print something, the customer doesn't care. They just care if the product is good. So that was an important thing to learn about, and kind of ties back to the time is money lesson that I learned from don't fix it, just replace it, potentially, from the IT position. But it's an important perspective to have, because it doesn't always matter in that fact. Like, not everything works that way, but a lot of things do. A whole lot of things. It's not about the time, it's about the result. So that was my big takeaway in that role. And then my final role with that company was I was brought back to the operations team to help support my former colleagues, which they were still in the same company, but I was brought back to operations to help district managers with analytics and develop better systems for them to make their life easier and to free up time for them, which I felt was a great fit for what I was best at, and kind of let me combine. It was a culmination of my skill sets coming to a head. I know how the operators are working. I know what the field is trying to do. I know what the district managers are struggling with, because I struggled with those things too. And I also know how to make those things better, given enough time or resources or allowance from somebody to focus on fixing that. So positionally, it felt like a great fit for me. But the unfortunate lesson I learned from that was that I overvalued the culmination of my experience and what I could deliver with that to them. My value that I placed on that did not match the value that they put on it. And I don't know whether that was actually the case, or if my supervisor thought one way, but the company would have thought the other way given the circumstances, or if I was just off target and I wasn't as, my very unique bundle of skills wasn't as valuable as I felt like it was. But at any rate, I wasn't feeling valued anymore for a variety of reasons, or not valued to the extent that I thought I was earning, which was a stark contrast from the way that my previous supervisors had made me feel. So it was a very hard decision to make, but I had an offer from an outside company that was so much more than what I was making that I couldn't pass it up. And it wasn't just about the money, but the money is one of the best ways a company can show you that they value you, is that they literally show you value in like your dollar value. And that company is a big Fortune 500 company that's headquartered in St. Louis. And it was a contract role, so it was a bit of a risk. It was a 6-month contract, but from everything I could find in my research on that, the company tended to hire people in those roles, but that was how a lot of specific tech positions would work, and I was going to be doing a lot of developing and analytics. And when I got there, that's exactly what I did, and I did a lot of it. And one thing I learned there was that the corporate culture has a profound impact on results. Going from an eye care company that grew, I think quicker than they could handle, to a company that was very large, very established, and it's existed for a very long time, and the energy in the building was just, you could tell you were surrounded by lots of highly skilled people, that were working very efficiently and effectively just created this whole different energy in the building that it just resonated with me very well, and I loved being there. It was such a great experience, but it happened to overlap with Zealot Hobbies going from 0 to 100 so quickly that I had to make the decision to end up, going part-time in that role, and then eventually ending, at the end of my contract and going full-time with my career, or my company instead of my career. But that role was really good. I feel like it ended on great terms, and it's probably a potential fallback if things go south. But yeah, so that's the career path that I took to ownership of my own small business. Started at a 15-hour a week bowling alley on campus, all the way up to my house has a bunch of 3D printers, and I like making stuff with them. I hope that maybe if this gets published, somebody will find some value in that journey. Lori, if you ever hear this, really appreciate you, and I'll never forget how much your decisions and your help and mentorship meant to me. But that's all I got. It's about time for me to pull over for the evening. Been on a long car ride, and these feel like a good time to get stuff out on video and decide whether or not I want to publish it. But have a good night.